can you say with, you know, a full chest that I'm doing what I wanted to be as a child?
Yes, and my dad also used to liken me to some of the people that I admired on TV. I would look at a news anchor and I'm like, one day like this, I'm going to be on that TV, I'm going to be anchoring news, I'm going to be hosting a show. And well, I've lived that here. I mean, I've lived that side of my life. And also, I remember one time I told myself, one day I'll be on an ad, I'll be doing ads. And I would say, if I really trace back, I've lived some of the things that I have really wanted to do as a child. Some of the things I admired, I have lived through them.
Oh, that's encouraging. And you know what? They always say that you start by encouraging yourself and then you achieve it. If you believe it, then you can achieve it. I usually admired seeing people on billboards, and yeah, I have lived that, being on a billboard. That was very huge for me growing up. And of course, now where I am, if you ask me, what did you want to be when you grow up? I wanted to be a lawyer. And when I was in senior 3, senior 4, that's when I changed and said, okay, if I can't be a lawyer, then I can be a journalist. So of the two, I had to choose one after senior 6. And here I am, so no regrets. I like this. I love doing this every single day. Well,
allow me to say something. So of arguing and doing lugambo, 1-1.
You know, they say lawyers are liars and journalists tell the truth. So I don't know where the thin line is, but we have so much in common. Well, today is also the day when Uganda is awaiting with bated breath for the State of the Nation address. We have different addresses that have come up over the years, and every single year there has been a few issues the president has highlighted, like security, like lawlessness, like employment, and of course infrastructure development. So today, after everything that has happened with the traders and URA, with the taxes that are going higher and higher every single day, and of course the bloated budget, many Ugandans wonder what they will be hearing from the president today. Is he going to address their concerns, or is it going to be something that they are not going to enjoy hearing? We won't know until the president addresses the nation. But before we launch into the news for this morning, I want to pick your mind, Joram. What do you expect today?
First and foremost, I wish the president makes comment on the sanctions, because I want to believe some of the political analysts and those who are actually watching, aside from the media, are eagerly waiting to hear the president's say, whether it's a minute or two, his comment on the sanctions on some of our different officials or government officials, especially the former ministers, and of course, that goes to also the Speaker to Parliament as well. So that is one of the things I expect the President to hint on. But then also looking into the issue to do with the national budget, because together with the Ministry of Finance, you get to realize that over the past 2 years, the government has been working tirelessly, if I'm to put it in that way, to ensure that human capital development is highly prioritized. And also the president always advises Ugandans to switch to commercial agriculture as a way to empower the millions of Ugandans, and to say that even the 49% gets into the money economy. So I want to see what other plans or what other initiatives does the president or the government have in the next financial year, because this is more like a kind of set-off for what we expect in the next financial year.
Well, in the next financial year, Chantal, what do you expect to hear from the president, or what key issues would you like to hear him address in the State of the Nation address today?
Well, Uganda's public debt is leaning, or is actually in the range of about 96 trillion, and as the head of the country, as the leader of the country, I would love to hear what he has to say on that very note, and what plans do we have or strategies do we have to make sure that we get out of this debt that we are sinking in. Also, look at the economy lately. Look at the levels of unemployment. Look at the infrastructure. I would love to hear those, especially now that we are drawing into the budget reading and all that. I'd love to hear some of those things. I'd love to know what the president thinks and how best we're going to be able to find solutions to some of those challenges we are faced as Ugandans.
And also, Olive, just
yes.
at the backdrop of the State of the Nation address, the viewer out there should be reminded that NERA extended the mass renewal and registration. It will be kicking off in July on dates that will be released.
Okay.
So it was expected to start 1st June,
yes.
as earlier reported. But due to some issues to do with, you know, readiness and the like, July would be the month when we shall be heading into that.
I'd love to know, though, what strategy is there, because some individuals, me inclusive, have expired IDs. My ID expired in May. So the question is, between now and July, when this mass renewal resumes, or starts, what plan is there? What if I go to present my ID somewhere and it's not acceptable? What do I do? What, in the interim, what happens?
Well, really we will know, and I believe that NERA will be giving us updates regarding that. But also, they have offices that are open, so I think you can also visit one of their offices and see if even before the mass renewal you can have your ID.
You know, she raises a pertinent concern, especially if I told you you're in an office that doesn't want to know about the NERA situation.
Well, now we will have a recap of the news that made headlines as of the last 24 hours. And we will start with the government, which commissioned the construction of the Namagumba Budadiri Nalugu Road in Sironko district, eastern Uganda. The Prime Minister of Uganda, Robina Nabanja, officiated the commissioning on behalf of the President, Yoweri Kaguta Museveni. The 39-kilometer road, once completed, is expected to boost trade and tourism in Mountain Elgon National Park. The Namagumba Budadiri Nalugugu Road in Sironko district is part of the route leading to Mountain Elgon National Park. To enhance tourism in the area, the government has embarked on its construction. Prime Minister Robina Nabanja directed UNRA and the road contractors to adhere to the agreed standards as per the contract with the government. Sironko district is bordered by Bulambuli district to the north, Kapchora and Queen to the northeast, Kenya to the east, Bududa to the southeast, Mbale to the south, and Bukedea to the west. The road will cost approximately 130 billion Uganda shillings, funded by the government of Uganda and the African Development Fund. A total of 2,700 locals will be affected by the project. The Uganda National Roads Authority assured the community in Sironko of total compensation for their land. Now moving on, the Prime Minister Robina Nabanja has assured the people of Lango that over 100 billion shillings has been allocated for the construction of Akibwa Stadium. This will include the upgrade of the road connecting Lira City with Gulu Airport and other road networks connecting Lira to neighboring towns. Prime Minister Robina Nabanja has said that Akibwa Stadium and other infrastructure in northern Uganda will be worked on soon. This was during her recent tour of the region, where leaders from the Lango, Acholi and West Nile sub-regions raised several pertinent issues with the Prime Minister, including poor road network to high levels of poverty in the region. They also demanded for affirmative action for northern Uganda communities. Prime Minister Nabanja shared some of the government's plans for the reconstruction of the region in the financial year 2024-25. The Prime Minister assured northern Uganda of the direction of the NUSA 4 programs, which are designed to directly tackle the livelihoods of the people. According to Nabanja, NISA 4 will directly address poverty. She disclosed that government plans to support all traditional chiefs in Uganda, enabling them to assist the government in addressing various social issues within their chiefdoms. Now, in other news, the chairperson for the NRM Parliamentary Caucus, who is also the government Chief Whip, Dennis Obua, says engagements and interrogations on the service awards are ongoing, cautioning NRM members against the pending signatures on the intended censure motion. This is at the time when a section of members of parliament have criticized Member of Parliament Veronica Nanyondo over allegations that she was hoodwinked to sign on the motion to remove the 4 commissioners of parliament. A letter addressed to the Speaker of Parliament, Anita Among, by Veronica Nanyondo, the Komansimbi District Woman Member of Parliament, circulated on social media platforms notifying about her intentions to withdraw a signature from the censure motion against 4 commissioners of Parliament. In her letter, Member of Parliament Nanyondo claims she signed on an attendance in a meeting called by the leader of the opposition, therefore distancing herself from the motion. Some members of parliament had mixed reactions on this statement. However, some members say that Member of Parliament Veronica Nanyondo had consent of exactly what she was signing to. The mover of the motion, Sechkubo Theodore, says the rules do not provide for withdrawal of signatures. However, the Bujiri Municipality Member of Parliament, Asuman Basalira, has cautioned the members of Parliament over legality of the motion. Some NRM members of Parliament replied the chairperson for the NRM Parliamentary Caucus. And lastly, in our local news, the Ministry of Education has initiated the 10th Kahoot of the Student Loan Scheme for the academic year 2023-24, aimed at assisting students in pursuing higher education. State Minister for Higher Education, Dr. John Chrysostom Moyingo, commended the Higher Education Students Financing Board for their dedicated management of student loan processes. This year's release adds 1,196 beneficiaries to the scheme, bringing the total to 14,601. The 10th cohort of the student loan scheme for 2023-24 has been released. The Minister for Higher Education, Dr. John Chrysostom Moyingo, says the total number of student loan beneficiaries now stands at 14,601. Moyingo urged beneficiaries to fulfill their repayment obligations promptly to enable other students to benefit from the scheme. The Executive Director of the Higher Education Students Financing Board, Michael Wanyama, emphasized that the introduction of the student loan scheme has provided opportunities for less privileged learners to access higher education at both undergraduate degree and diploma levels. Wanyama disclosed that since its inception, 14,601 learners in 23 public and private universities and 36 other tertiary institutions have benefited from the scheme. The chairperson of the board, Dr. Charles Wana Etienne, says that with a resource allocation of 5.2 billion shillings, an additional 1,196 students have been approved for support, covering tuition fees, functional fees, and aids and appliances for persons with disabilities. Out of the selected beneficiaries, 73.5% are male, 26.5% are female, and 11 are persons with disabilities. However, out of 1,921 applications, 640 were rejected for not meeting the eligibility criteria. Well, at least a ray of hope for students that want to pursue higher education. And I'm here for it. Well, with that, Chantal Olive takes us through the international news.
Internationally, Israel launches new military operations in central Gaza. Now, the military in Israel says it has taken operational control over eastern areas of Burej refugee camp and the town of Deir al-Balah in central Gaza as dozens of Palestinians were reported killed. On Wednesday morning, the military said troops backed by airstrikes had begun an operation against terrorists and terrorist infrastructure above and below ground. Residents reported intense bombardment, and the charity Medicines Sans Frontiers said at least 70 dead people, the majority women and children, had been brought to a local hospital since Tuesday. It came as U.S., Egypt, and Qatari mediators met in Doha and Cairo to discuss how to finalize a new ceasefire and hostage release deal. The U.S. said on Tuesday it was still waiting for a response from Hamas to what it described as an Israeli proposal outlined by U.S. President Joe Biden last week. Qatari said it had delivered the plan to Hamas representatives and noted that it was also still waiting for a clear position from the Israeli government. And away from that, Russian President Putin has warned that Moscow could arm countries with a view of attacking Western targets. Mr. Putin made the statement while criticizing the West's delivery of long-range weapons to Ukraine. Several countries, including the United States, have given Ukraine the green light to strike targets inside Russia. Such action could lead to a very serious problem, Mr. Putin told foreign reporters. If someone thinks it is possible to supply such weapons to a war zone to attack our territory and create problems for us, why don't we have the right to supply weapons for the same class of regions of the world where there will be strikes on sensitive facilities of those countries, the Russian president said. That is the response can be asymmetric. We will think about it. He did not specify which countries Moscow could supply weapons to. And moving on, back to Africa, South Africa's African National Congress has suggested forming a government of national unity after losing its parliamentary majority last week's election. It says it has reached out to all parties, but negotiations are still underway, and the results indicate that the South Africans want all parties to work together, ANC spokesperson Malengi Bengu Motsiri told journalists. The ANC got about 40% of the vote, with the center-right Democratic Alliance on 22%, the MK party of former President Jacob Zuma on 15%, and the Radical Economic Freedom Fighters on 9%. This was the first time the ANC has lost its majority since Nelson Mandela led it to victory in the first democratic elections following the end of the racist system of apartheid in 1994. Under South Africa's proportional representation system, any government would need to be formed of parties which together got more than 50% of the vote. Ms. Bengu said the ANC had discussions with the DA, the EFF, and other smaller parties. Well, let's see how that turns out for the ANC now. Lastly, matters climate. The world's fossil fuel industries should be banned from advertising to help save the world from climate change, the head of the United Nations said yesterday. UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres called coal, oil, and gas corporations the godfathers of climate chaos, who had distorted the truth and deceived the public for decades. Just as tobacco advertising was banned because of the threat to health, the same should now apply to fossil fuels, he said. His remarks were his most damning condemnation yet of the industries responsible for the bulk of global warming. They came as new studies showed the rate of warming is increasing and that global heat records have continued to tumble. Data from the EU's climate service confirms that each of the past 12 months set a new global temperature record for the first time of the year. The high temperatures were driven by human-caused climate change, although they were also given a small boost by the El Nino climate phenomenon. And that's it for climate news and what is happening across different borders in the world.
Well, thank you, Chantal Olive. Interesting news coming in from South Africa. And I think the rest of Africa is waiting to see what a coalition government is going to be like. Yes.
Nelson Mandela must be turning in his tomb right now.
Do you know that's what I had in my mind as you were reading the news?
Must be turning in his tomb.
He must be. But anyway, years have gone by. There has been involvement even in politics. So we wait and see what South Africa is going to do going forward. But we still have more. Jerome Paul, what's with the dailies?
Well, the New Vision this morning is highlighting that 1,200 students have been given government loans. Now, out of those 4 pages of the loan scheme, beneficiaries are inside today's case of the New Vision. Then also, in today's New Vision, the State of the Nation, what leaders expect from the presidential address. Find details in today's New Vision. Then elsewhere, government releases 3.4 billion Ugandan shillings for Luwero war ex-fighters. How will that be disbursed? Find details in the New Vision. Then viral video torture suspects have been arrested, according to the New Vision. Torture suspect Samuel Azabo and Darius Openya at Old Kampala Police Station in today's case of the New Vision. You can read about them and how they were traced by the different intelligence units of the police. Now, the Daily Monitor this Thursday. This is the state of the nation, Mr. President, says the Daily Monitor. A breakdown of what is happening and what they expect as well from the president ahead of his address this afternoon. NIRA extends date for renewal of national IDs again. Find details as to why that was done. In the DM today, how the Wambakas finally had their dream wedding. Find the details in today's Daily Monitor. Address must speak to reality and work for all, from the editors of the Daily Monitor today. Find details and more of that in the Daily Monitor. Now we cross the borders to Kenya because the Daily Nation is also highlighting something a bit political, which is showing Raila, I am not anyone's project. He says, state's support surprised me, says the ODM chief. And then also, children is doctor by day and the DJ by night. Dr. Elizabeth Kuta isn't your ordinary medic. Wow, an interesting report, most of coming in from a female. And then Kenya, all set to host 2024 Kiswahili Day. The preparations in top gear, says Jumwa. Then Relief as state releases 1.2 billion Kenyan shillings vaccine. And then relentless Ronaldo chasing more glory with Portugal ahead of the Euro 2024, which kicks off next week. And lastly, Odinga to face off with 3 others. And he's still surprised with the state's support ahead of his quest for a top office at the African Union. Now, lastly, from the press review, we head to Tanzania. The Citizen revealed East Africa's most profitable banks. Find details of those banks. In there is KCB, there is Equity Group, there is the Cooperative Bank Group, and then CRDB Group, and then there is also NMB Bank. Now, you can easily see that there is only 2 of those operating in the country here. Then also Tanzania's Ramada Resort responds to LGBTQ allegations. And then lastly, how we freed ourselves from the clutches of compulsive gambling. Also, importers have turned to euro to beat dollar crunch. That is what the press is highlighting from the print media perspective.
Well, thank you, Jerome Paul. Now, I'm sure that when Ruben comes later on to give us sports updates, he will mention that Uganda won its first ever, or achieved its first ever victory at the ICC Men's T20 World Cup with a 3-wicket triumph over Papua New Guinea. That was really exciting. As I was coming to work today, I was listening to the radio, and this radio presenter couldn't breathe. He just couldn't, because he was extremely happy. Well, Ruben will give us more of that, but now we will take a breather. We'll leave you with Africa by Toto.
The older you grow, the more problems, right?
Usually, but the more resilient you become, No guma. The thicker skin you get, yes.
You glow with your problems.
Well, today being Thursday, Jerome, still, I would like to know, when you look back, because I said I was reflecting, and for me, the jury came back and the verdict was not really comforting, but I would like to come to you. When you look at where your life is today, and if you remember back in the day when they would ask you, what do you want to be when you grow up? What is to be your answer? Like the one that came at the snap of a finger.
We used to throw words like becoming a pilot. That was during my primary days. I didn't have anything in mind of what I wanted to become. But when I got into secondary, I wanted to do media. And God willing, here I am. So if I'm to throw back to what I wanted to become and what I am today, I think I'm going in the right direction. And I should be very proud of my journey so far.
Splendid, splendid.
You and me, boss.
Chantal, are you aware? You said between your looks and your age is older. Now let's go back to what you wanted to be when you were younger. Can you say with, a full chest that I'm doing what I wanted to be as a child?
Yes, and my dad also used to liken me to some of the people that I admired on TV. I would look at a news anchor and I'm like, one day like this, I'm going to be on that TV, I'm going to be anchoring news, I'm going to be hosting a show. And well, I've lived that here. I mean, I've lived that side of my life. And also, I remember one time I told myself, one day I'll be on an ad, I'll be doing ads. And I would say, if I really trace back, I've lived some of the things that I have really wanted to do as a child. Some of the things I admired, I have lived through them.
Well, that's encouraging. And you know what? They always say that you start by encouraging yourself and then you achieve it. If you believe it, then you can achieve it. I usually admired seeing people on billboards, and yeah, I have lived that, being on a billboard. That was very huge for me growing up. And of course, now where I am, if you ask me, what did you want to be when you grow up? I wanted to be a lawyer. And when I was in senior 3, senior 4, that's when I changed and said, okay, if I can't be a lawyer, then I can be a journalist. So of the two, I had to choose one after senior 6. And here I am, so no regrets. I like this. I love doing this every single day. Well,
allow me to say something. So of arguing and doing lugambo, 1-1.
You know, they say lawyers are liars and journalists tell the truth. So I don't know where the thin line is, but we have so much in common. Well, today is also the day when Uganda is awaiting with bated breath for the State of the Nation address. We have different addresses that have come up over the years, and every single year there has been a few issues the president has highlighted, like security, like lawlessness, like employment, and of course infrastructure development. So today, after everything that has happened with the traders and URA, with the taxes that are going higher and higher every single day, and of course the bloated budget, many Ugandans wonder what they will be hearing from the president today. Is he going to address their concerns, or is it going to be something that they are not going to enjoy hearing? We won't know until the president addresses the nation. But before we launch into the news for this morning, I want to pick your mind, Joram. What do you expect today?
First and foremost, I wish the president makes comment on the sanctions, because I want to believe some of the political analysts and those who are actually watching, aside from the media, are eagerly waiting to hear the president's say, whether it's a minute or two, his comment on the sanctions on some of our different officials or government officials, especially the former ministers, and of course, that goes to also the Speaker to Parliament as well. So that is one of the things I expect the President to hit on.
UBC is the national public broadcaster. We educate, inform, entertain, and inspire our audiences. You can watch us on free-to-air channel 001, DSTV channel 282, GoTV channel 371, Star Times channel 201, Zuku TV channel 20, and Azam TV channel 350. Even when your subscription expires, you can still watch UBC for free on your pay TV platforms.
PDM, changing lives.
Live from UBC Studios in Kampala, this is Good Morning Uganda.
Well, today Ugandans wait with bated breath for the State of the Nation address. The President, Yoweri Kaguta Museveni, will be addressing the nation this afternoon. And of course, with everything that has been going on, first of all, the bloated budget, which is 72 trillion shillings. Now, of this 72 trillion shillings, 31 trillion is expected, about 31 to 32 is expected to pay debt. And then about 31 is supposed to be borrowed. And also URA is supposed to collect around the same. But the big question Ugandans are asking is, where is this money going to come from? And of course, there is also questions regarding accountability and expenditure and even implementation. That and more are some of the questions Ugandans are asking. And as we await the presidential address, many want the president to touch on these points. But also there is the issue of security and lawlessness in the country, as evidenced by the many footages we have seen on social media of young men that are attacking innocent bystanders and pedestrians on roads, attacking them and robbing them, some of them in broad daylight. Of course, when we speak about security, you also think about matters terrorism, but at least there, we have nothing to worry about, as the National Army and government as a whole has done its best to ensure that Ugandans are safe, to protect the borders of our country. But how about within? Those are questions that are being asked by Ugandans. Now, today, as we launch into the State of the Nation address, we'd like to have a recap of some of the addresses that we have seen in the past, starting with the one from last year, and see, have there been achievements since last year to this year, because it's been a year since then, or are there some gaps that still need to be covered? Well, in the previous State of the Nation address, the President said that the key priority areas aimed at boosting Uganda's socio-economic transformation drive. And he specified measures including studying subsidies for fertilizers and urging Western countries to ease manipulation. And I remember even when he gave his speech during the NAM that happened, the Non-Aligned Movement Summit that happened in January, he still reiterated that message, telling the Western countries to ease on manipulation and interference into African countries. So today we look at the State of the Nation address, especially the one for last year. And with Jerome Paul Sonko, Chantal Olive is also with us. My name is Olive Monica Najuma, and together we delve into this. Jerome, the State of the Nation address. Here we are, 1 year later. What are your expectations?
Let me just run back to 2021 real fast. In 2021, during the presidential address or State of the Nation address, the president highlighted on, you know, infrastructure development as a very huge kind of driver for the economy. And when you look at what was put in the budgets in the following years, before we even rush it to 2024, you get to realize that some roads were constructed, others are still having issues in regards to maintenance. Now, you've mentioned something about 1 year later from 2023 when the president addressed the nation on the achievements so far. Let's look at the infrastructure bit of it. When you do remember, and I like the fact that you've also pushed out the NAM question. When we were preparing for the non-aligned movement, we saw the preparations that were coming in, and of course many Ugandans were impressed however much some of these particular preparations came during or on the eve of the NAM summit, or the NAM and the Third South Summit that were happening in the country in January. But when you look at the achievements of the past few months or the last 1 year since the president's address, when you look at it from the aspect of security, we've been reporting some isolated cases of insecurity here and there, but then you have to give it back to the president that in regards to the security and what he assured the Ugandans during his previous address is that Uganda will continue to be a peaceful country and the security will be top-notch, and that means we shall definitely continue doing whatever we are doing in a country that we know we shall not be having any sort of external attacks. And that is something that you have to give it to the president, the government, and the security organs in the country. And then from that angle, well, you also now look at the element of exports. The president last year mentioned something to do with exports, because he did realize that as a country, we are importing more goods than we are actually exporting. So that means for our economy, for instance, it is not growing if at all you are taking the money out of the economy to buy goods, instead of sending goods out and bringing money into the economy. And over the past few months, you've seen how traders have been having issues here and there. One, when it comes to the IFRIs, where URA was implementing IFRIs to ensure that they track how the traders respond to paying the taxes, and tracking to see how many of these taxpayers are compliant. And in the long run as well, many traders were not happy because of the issues here and there. But when you look back at the presidential kind of drive to ensure that we get practical and add value to our goods, again, you want to realize that it is something that has received some backlash, but it's something that clearly shows that it's a vision that we can look at and say that we may increase on our levels of exports, because we are importing so much than what we export. So looking back at what the president mentioned then when he was criticizing the traders for over-importing goods, yet we also have some goods that are being manufactured in the country that we only need to make sure that we add value and then also have some quality on the standards of these goods, then we can rather export more than what we are importing. And then again, commercial agriculture is something that was highly mentioned by the president in his former State of the Nation address. So this has always been through the different initiatives that we've seen, Emyoga, the PDM, where money is heading into these particular government programs to ensure that the Ugandans are being empowered. But however, of course, there have been some challenges with this particular PDM and Emyoga and other government programs. Why? Because you do realize that not so many of the Ugandans have benefited. But we have some success stories where some of those who have actually gained something from the PDM and the Emyoga have benefited those who are into fish farming. We've seen those who are actually into coffee growing and the like. But however...
Well, Jerome, we will delve deeper, and I like that you have highlighted the Emyoga and parish development model. And I would like for us to delve deeper because it's been one of the initiatives the President once suggested in a State of the Nation address as one of the ways to deal with youth unemployment. So I'll get back to you on that. For now, I would like for us to watch the last presidential, the last State of the Nation address and see the key highlights that the President mentioned. Let's take a watch.
I also have my list of things I want to listen 1 year down the road. I expect him to tell the country how state of the economy, how we are faring in terms of the balance of payments, how we have substituted imports. It's important that the President addresses the economy because there is no country that can be run without money.
The firm stand on security is also anticipated because Uganda as a nation, being surrounded by what is happening now in South Sudan, we are aware. We want to see how we shall remain resilient security-wise and be able to continue to expand our trade both internally and externally.
On concrete actions that he's going to take against corruption. There has been a lot of talk, and what we want to see is action from the President. Not just talking, because it has been several years of talking about the fight against corruption. And of course, corruption is now increasing, partially because of inaction. So I hope he can give us a clear, concrete plan of what action is going to take, but also a call, a wake-up call on the institutions charged with the responsibility of fighting corruption.
Right to security, but surely, what I think it will be much on the enablers of the economy. Yes.
Expanding the economic base of the country has remained crucial since the NRM came into power. President Yoweri Museveni consistently reminded the public of the economy's evolution from US dollars 1.5 billion in 1986 to over US dollars 49.4 billion. During the last State of the Nation address, he criticized the continuous export of raw materials, which has hindered development.
The economy is still largely raw material based. This is the problem I have with finance. And all those wonderful people, agriculture, what? All these plans, 6% rate of growth, this one, they are all assuming.
Well, so those are some of the thoughts from members of parliament like Sarah Opendi. And of course, Jerome Paul did mention something earlier that the president did not last year, that last year and also this year when he was speaking to the traders recently, he said they over-import and yet we need to export more. And he was right because according to the goods and services as percentage of GDP is 25.93%, and that is of goods that are imported into Uganda, and yet the exports of goods and services as percentage of GDP is 15.78%. So we are consuming more of what we don't make, and we don't export as much. So the president wants us to include our products on the global market so that we can have more. And of course, he's been very key and loud on value addition, especially when it comes to coffee and other agricultural products that come from Uganda. Now, coming back to you, Tim, I'll go to Chantal. And my question here is, the president, among the key highlights, in his last address, and the addresses before that, has mentioned that security means peace. But he also mentioned, especially in 2016, that security not only means peace, but also lack of lawlessness in the country. Now, with the flying kicks, or round kicks, if you may, do we really think that the lawlessness has been dealt with? The peace is there as far as the country is concerned. We've not had terror attacks. Security has been able to get forward in front of any threats. But when it comes to the internal lawlessness, do we have confidence that enough has been done?
I would say no. I would say no, and that is because we still have high crime rate. We still have almost after a phase, there is a new phase of one, people are getting attacked. For example, people are getting attacked on borders, others are being given round kicks, and when you're walking in town, if you don't hold your bag a certain way up to today, you're most likely going to lose it. Yesterday, I know of an incident where someone, broad daylight, this is like, I think at midday, and someone's car was almost stolen. So we still have, the lawlessness in the country. However, I would say that it has reasons that have really made it prevalent, and I think those are the reasons we need to go back and handle before we even put our focus on the lawlessness.
Okay. Now, still in one of the presidential addresses, there is a time the president mentioned that the police force had been infiltrated by wrong elements, and he had advised the police leadership to ensure that they rid themselves of these elements, because according to the president, they were supporting or giving a helping hand to criminals. And you have mentioned here before that sometimes people go to police stations to report certain cases, and the police officers are like, we know who they are. So since then, this was when he did say that there are wrong elements in the police. This was in 2016, the State of the Nation address of 2016. Today is 2024. Years have gone by. Do we have confidence that the police force has been able to rid themselves of these wrong elements?
During that time, I want we've also had changes in the IGP. Is it 3 times? Since 2016, when you look at that.
Yes, with the recent one makes it 3.
Yes, with the recent one. Now, first, I'm not going to say that we've had some changes in anything, because you get to realize that these are cases that are still being reported, or these are allegations that are still coming out strong, especially from those who have got issues with the police themselves. We've got scenarios, or we have reported scenarios, where an individual who wants to report a case to the police is rather pushed away or does not meet justice as expected. And these are cases, well, it may not be as predominant as it was during the time the president addressed it in 2016, but you get to realize that it is something that we should expect the president to comment about today afternoon. Why? Because you do realize that with the level of crime that is actually prevailing within the suburbs currently, with the cases that are being reported and the cases that are being recorded by CCTV, you get to realize that at least we need the police on our side. You can only imagine if at all you have thugs on your doorstep, and then you try to run and report to the police, only to the police to send you away, or only for the police to just shun away from helping you or supporting you. Then again, you will feel quite unfavored as a Ugandan, or you will feel unsupported. So I think even with the current situations where we've seen the police at times arresting, let's say, border riders who are not, breaking any road rule whatsoever, and then asking money from them. These are some of those cases that you get to see that we still have, the kawukumi within some directorates of the police.
Now, in one of the State of the Nation addresses, the president did caution the police force against arresting unemployed youth and charging them with idle and disorderly, and said that the country would have to just find ways of ensuring that the youth are employed and encouraging them. And he even came up with initiatives to help the youth. First of all, what are some of these initiatives that the president or the government has come up with to deal with youth unemployment? But before you even answer that, do you think that probably this is an order that maybe has to be recanted, because with the flying kicks and round kicks, and I saw someone fighting with a security guard who had a gun. What's going on in this country?
Well, when you also get to listen to the story by the behind that, that previous video of someone fighting a security guard, you get to realize that he was either going to steal something, and then they kind of got him. Now, because he thought he has the energy to do what he sees in movies, maybe, then he tried to, you know, to go heads on with the security guard. And you can only imagine the state we are in.
Yeah.
Well, you've mentioned something to do with, you know, the programs that were being put in place.
Before you mention the programs, Jerome, do you think that we need to maybe revise the caution or the order against arresting idle youth?
We need. Why? Because when you look at the level of crime rise, it is highly pushed to the level of unemployment, because many of these young people do not have jobs. And you can only imagine if someone doesn't have what to eat, they will definitely think that you, who is seemingly well off, should be the person they have to attack to get their next meal. So
but
that's why
isn't that chaotic?
We end up
isn't that chaotic though, if we go around arresting? Because back in the day, the youth would be found maybe walking along the street, maybe past 10 p.m., and they would be arrested. And in some cases, they were really innocent. Where do you strike the balance?
You know, my suggestion is not really even arresting them for idle and disorderly, because personally, I feel I've also been into a stage where I was just moving around. And imagine if you're just moving around, maybe trying to catch some breath and, you know, get some fresh air, and you're arrested. All I'm just trying to say is we need to revise some of these programs that were put in place. For example, when you look at what the president had, there was the establishment of technical and vocational education training institutions. But when you look at how they operate, you're having a number of young people within the city who have never received education. These have been within, they've grown up from the city. They have been raised by the suburbs or by the ghettos that we will definitely, you know, kind of put them in such a cluster. They've been raised by the streets. I think that is the right word to use. Now, when you have that population or that bunch of the population being raised by the streets, it is going to be quite hard, if at all you do not help them while they are still young. Because once they click 20 years, the chances are they're not going to be employed, because maybe they don't have the qualifications. And even the leaders within, because at times you're looking at the president passing these initiatives and programs to the leaders representing him in the different settings, the RDCs, the RCCs, then you wonder, what is their duty? Do they even know that we have all these street children within the areas, and how are we going to help them become meaningful citizens? I think that is where we really need to kind of revise and set this nation moving forward.
Well, Chantal, I would like to come to you now. And in the 2022 address, the president did say that agriculture is the backbone of Uganda's economy. Right. So I'm sure, me, Olive, Najima, and a Ugandan watching us there is wondering what are some of the measures the government has taken, and what measures the president then highlighted that could bolster Uganda's agriculture sector.
Well, it's in my own opinion, it's been the same song, you know, for the last couple of years. We've been talking about, one, commercializing agriculture, and that is one of the measures that should have been put in place to make sure that we get out of subsistence farming, we get into commercial agriculture on larger scales, so that we are able to, you know, to earn money from the agriculture that we are undertaking, especially because we do have the good soils, we do have the good weather that supports agriculture. And these are some of the words, not directly what he said, but some of the words of the president. But I also noted that he mentioned, especially last year, he mentioned something to do with us being that we concentrate more on the raw material, or on the, when we are exporting, for example, coffee. Previously, we were exporting entirely raw coffee. It's only a few years ago, or maybe 1 or 2 ago, that we started venturing further into processing our coffee. But still, we are still missing the mark to some degree, not just for coffee, but for different items or for different produce. So you realize that the problem now is that we need to commercialize agriculture, but one, we are still transitioning from subsistence to commercial, but also we need now to shift from exporting the raw material or just the produce to adding value to our produce to enable us earn more and also be highly competitive on the world market. And I still think that is a part that I would now look at having solutions, since we have realized that we are still in a place where we haven't achieved some of those marks.
Well, as we close, and I'll start with you, Chantal, your parting shots. The president has, for so many times, mentioned about boosting household incomes. And I would like to know what some of the suggestions and government initiatives have been put in place to boost household incomes, just in a few seconds. And the same question goes to you, Jerome Paul. And actually for you, Jerome Paul, are you confident with what has been done, or there is still gaps that need to be covered? Chantal.
Well, last year the president expressed optimism with the parish development model. After that, we also saw initiatives by members of parliament on the direction of the president to go to the different constituencies and districts and make sure that they actually check and see if this parish development model is achieving its purpose. And that is one of the initiatives that had been put in place previously to improve household income. But then again, we've had a lot of controversies about surrounding it. We've also had even the recent reports telling you how district leaders have been arrested for misusing or even for embezzling the parish development model funds. And goes back down to all the programs, the Youth Livelihood Program, Bonna Bagagawale, over the years that we have seen. But then again, some fail along the way, some due to lack of funding, some due to misappropriation of funds, and others failed because they're not properly planned out. And it goes without saying that much as we have the very good plans, yes, we have the very good intention, yes, we need to implement and hold people accountable. If someone swindles money, I don't see why they are still in office.
Well, those are Chantal's thoughts, and I think I back her to a degree. Jerome Paul, do you feel confident about some of the measures that have been put in place to boost household incomes, just in a few seconds?
Yes, I do feel confident. However, we need to look at the issue of integrity. When you look at the rollout of the parish development model, in the initial stages, some of the cases that were being reported were, we had ghost SACCOs.
Yes.
And which means someone had created a SACCO and they were taking money. So that means the element of integrity really needs to be discussed within our country. Why? Because we are seeing these corruption cases within the country, and that is something that is undermining some of these programs. So the PDM, which has seen some Ugandans benefit from the same, but if at all we continue to misuse such programs by taking money that is supposed to support the Ugandans, then I think it will be a huge problem. But I'm really confident that these programs can really spur the growth of household incomes.
Well, thank you so much for your thoughts. And if you have just caught the tail end of the conversation, we were having a recap of the last presidential addresses, looking into last year's State of the Nation address and others that came before that. Some of the key issues the president has over time highlighted are security and, of course, infrastructure development, youth employment, youth unemployment, and, of course, the measures to handle that agriculture sector. He has talked about all of these, and a few measures have been put in place. Now, from what Joram Paul said about integrity and what Chantal shared still regarding the parish development model challenges, what I hear is one word: corruption. And the president did promise during the Matters Day celebrations in his speech that today in the State of the Nation address, he will tackle, he will address, he will talk about the issue of corruption. So we wait with bated breath to see what the president has for us this afternoon. Good Morning Uganda continues. Stick with us.
Live from UBC Studios in Kampala, this is Good Morning Uganda.
UBC is the national public broadcaster. We educate, inform, entertain, and inspire our audiences. You can watch us on free-to-air channel 001, DSTV channel 282, GoTV channel 371, Star Times channel 201, Zuku TV channel 20, and Azam TV channel 350. Even when your subscription expires, you can still watch UBC for free on your pay TV platforms.
PDM, changing lives.
Live from UBC Studios in Kampala, this is Good Morning Uganda.
In any tourism destination, after accommodation and transportation, the next important thing that needs to be in a city or a tourism destination, that's a tourism information center. Right now, we are at Sheraton Hotel at the Tourism Information Center. I should say that's the only one that we have in the country, and it is located in Kampala Center. So this is a tourism information center that is managed by Uganda Wildlife Authority together with Kampala State Council Authority to see that they provide more information. It is a source that gives you different tourism resources, knowledge, information, and more learning for research and education, and also more about the cultural beat that happens in Uganda's beautiful country. Well, today we are going to explore and see what really happens at the Information Center. My name is Irene Alena Misango, and this is the GME Tourism Express, where we decided to take you around Kampala, showing you everything that you need to know about Uganda's tourism. And for the information, as long as you lack information, where do you want to go in Kampala, what do you want to do in Kampala, where should you stay according to your budget, maybe you have a city tour, you're going to walk around Kampala, you need to keep your baggage somewhere that is safe, the Kampala Information Center is the place for you. Well, let's go in and roll and see what really happens here.
My name is Lydia Odaga. I work with the KCCA Tourism Development. I sit here at the Tourism Information Center. What I do here basically is to talk to customers or tourists who come to Kampala and tell them where, which places, which sites, touristic sites which they can go to see Kampala. Like Kampala in a snapshot. What is that? Kampala in a snapshot is what we put in, what you can see at the background. That is our Kampala in a snapshot. But what I can tell them, you can walk to the information, not information center, but I'm saying to the Independence Monument. Independence Monument, you can go to City Square. Sheraton as itself is a green garden for all Ugandans and tourists who come. You can walk to the gardens and enjoy Kampala. So you talk of green space, Sheraton is a green space of Kampala. You're looking for other tourist cultural sites to see, we send you to Bulange, the Royal Mile, where you see the totems of Buganda. When we talk about the culture, we try to talk about Kampala and Uganda, Baganda, because it's what the tribe that is in Kampala. A lot of it, much as all have come from other areas to come to Kampala, but we talk a lot about Baganda because they have their rituals, their totems, their kingdom here in Buganda. So that is Kampala for us. So when we're talking about what makes Kampala, Kampala derived from the name Impala. So we have a monument of Impala by the Parliament Avenue. And then we bring other parts of Uganda to Kampala to make Kampala for people to know that you can go to different parts of Uganda, but you can also see it in Kampala. Where is that? We have the gorilla monument. We built it there that we can talk about people going to Bwindi to see the gorilla. We have made Kira Road. Kira Road is now like the park of Uganda in Kampala. So you go there, you'll find the lion, you'll find the giraffe, you'll find the elephant. And where else do we send you? We can send you to Kasubi Tombs. Those are the burial grounds of the kingdom of Uganda. Why was the center built? The center was basically built, or this was a building that had been there before. It was renovated so that people can know more about Uganda. So when was it opened? We opened it in 2022, November. That is when it was officially opened. For anybody, any tourist, any Ugandan, you can come and get to whatever tourism information. Who are we here with? We are with the UA, we are with UTB. UWEC also, we can give you information about it. So anything tourism you want to know, you can come here. We ask tour operators to bring their information so that any tourist coming can find something about them. Because we cannot tell you, go to this hotel, go to the other one. But we want you to sell yourselves in this center. Every Ugandan tour operator, please come sell yourself at the Tourism Information Center. That is tourism in a snapshot, or Tourism Information Center. I sit here, I'm from KCCA, but we are marketing Kampala.
So for the Tourism Information Center in any destination, in any country, it is supposed to bring together local communities, tour operators, and all stakeholders in the tourism industry to interact with tourists, so their products, tell them more about what they do, and tell them more about what happens or takes place in the Pearl of Africa. But my question is, have the tour operators really utilized this place? Have they brought in their brochures? Have they come in oftenly to see whether they find people here and interact with them? Okay, maybe they tried, but has also the Tourism Information Center under KCCA and Uganda Wildlife Authority, have they done enough to sell out this center to tourists? That are there some tourists that come in this place to ask for information, that it could attract other different stakeholders to come and utilize the place? Or the place was just set up so beautiful, so nice, but it is not so much used physically. So this is something that I feel, guys, you should embrace. If your tour operator come to the information center, put in your brochures, giving your information so that you can be recommended. I have benefited in this place. I've gotten several recommendations from this place. And we are also putting up our travel magazine here, the Ugandan Covered Magazine, to come, and you can also have a look at it. But even other tour operators or destination managers, you can bring in your brochures here so that you get more visibility to the tourists that come to this place, and also other tour operators and stakeholders in the tourism industry that come and sit here. Thank you so much for watching. I am Irene Alena Misango, and coming up next is Joram Paul Sonko with the GMU Business Update.
once again, and it's time for business this morning. The Uganda Revenue Authority has highlighted on the negative propaganda against the IFRIS waiver exercise, which has discouraged quite a number of traders from benefiting from this affirmative action window. Now, the authority's head of corporate affairs, Ibrahim Bossa, revealed that out of the 3,500 expected traders, only 2,121 have turned to apply for IFRIS penalty waiver. Now, the exercise of waiving the IFRIS penalties has been concluded at the revenue offices across the country. And upon meeting the president in the last month meeting at Kololo, this was some of the directive that the president had taken to ensure that the traders were granted a window of forgiving them all penalties which had accrued on IFRIS non-compliance. Now, the Uganda Revenue Authority established a special desk to work on the process of waiving the IFRIS penalties as directed by the president. Now, also, according to the tax body, at least 61% have turned up for this exercise, while the others have deliberately failed to apply despite being candidates of this window. Now, also, this is attributed to the negative propaganda and misinformation about the exercise. And in this the Uganda Revenue Authority estimated at least 55 billion shillings to be forgiven. But according to the preliminary data, only 22.5 billion shillings has been registered in these applications of the IFRIS waiver. Now, the IFRIS waiver is expected to have URA collect approximately 300 billion shillings from the value-added tax, and this will ultimately affect the country's budgetary framework because the body cannot raise the estimated 3.5 trillion shillings for VAT, and the current low turn-up, especially in Kampala, may not attract more extension for IFRIS. And also, the next meeting of the traders is expected on the 20th of June with the president. So we wait to see what will come out from that same meeting as the traders will be meeting the president. Just to remind you, by the way, when the traders met with the president, some of the issues that were at hand included IFRIS and then also included the value-added tax, but also other taxes attached to the imports. More discussions are continuing between the Uganda Revenue Authority or the taxman and the traders. Why is that so? Is to ensure that there is a smooth transition of business and also to enable the growth of Uganda's economy more so in the upcoming financial year of 2024-2025, as much as the Uganda Revenue Authority is also highly targeting to increase on its revenue mobilization strategies that will also enable the country's economy to grow. Now we return to the capital because Kampala City Council Authority has partnered with Absa Bank Uganda to restore 30 acres of forest cover at KCCA Agricultural Center, that is in Kayanja Wakiso district. Now, this tree planting exercise has at the commemoration of the International Environment Day, which was yesterday, and at least 30,000 trees are expected to be planted under this new collaboration between KCCA and Absa Bank Uganda. Now, to achieve the ambitions of having a clean city with reasonable catchment natural cover, KCCA plans to leverage on the public-private partnerships to ensure that this comes to pass, and also to ensure that matters dealing with environmental conservation are highly emphasized. Now, also, when you look at the partnerships, this is towards having the goals and achieving goals of a clean city, which is resilient to climate change challenges. And Absa Bank is ensuring that this partnership with KCCA will at least see over 3,000 trees in KCCA's Agriculture Center in Kayanja Wakiso district in a bid to restore the environment in the increased industrialized areas of the capital. And then when you also look at the further collaborations that KCCA is working upon, is to also ensure that private sector players as well as civil society organizations lead in the drive to address climate change, not only within the capital, but also on the outskirts of the city. Now, also, lastly, from the business news this morning, and lastly, more from the business news this morning. We turn our focus on a significant development that has seen the African Guarantee Fund renewing its support to Centenary Bank by providing an additional loan portfolio of close to 25 million US dollars. Now, the guarantee, this is coming as a guarantee to borrowers of up to 50% of the security, with an exception for women who have been guaranteed at least 75%. Now, this move aims to further enhance access to credit, especially for the small and medium-sized enterprises, which are a driving force for Uganda's growing economy. Now, the partnership between Centenary Bank and the AGF dates back to January of 2020, as of 7th, before the COVID-19 hit the country, when AGF initially provided a 10 million guarantee fund agreement. Now, the successful collaboration between AGF and Centenary Bank, by the way, will see an increase of the lending capacity for Centenary Bank and a favor to the SMEs within the country. So the small and medium-sized enterprises will be benefiting from this partnership even more, with the fact that there is an additional 25 million guarantee portfolio, enabling Centenary to expand its support to SMEs in more priority sectors, especially agriculture, construction, and trade, because most of the SMEs are centered within those priority sectors. Now, developing countries like Uganda, when you come to think of it, really suffer a lot from heavy debt to GDP ratio, with Uganda's own standing at around 46% as of June 2023. That is 1 year apart. This usually leaves the government with limited options to provide cheap capital to the private sector. Now, lastly, from our business news, we head to Busia, because the coffee farmers in various sub-counties of Busia district have elated due to a surge in coffee prices and the acquisition of a coffee huller machine donated by the Uganda Coffee Development Authority. Now, currently, the farm gate price of a kilogram of coffee, that is Robusta coffee, has risen from 12,000, has risen to 12,500. Yet it was at 4,800 shillings previously. Now, this price increase has attracted many farmers from Masafu Town Council, Masinda, Mastaba, Bostaba, Buyaga, and Masafu sub-counties, besides cross-border businesses which has lost value over the past few months, is also gaining traction because of the same. Now, the Busia District Senior Production Officer, Baraza Patrick, said that coffee production in Busia had decreased due to low prices. However, with the recent price increase, the target is to make Busia comparable to Bugisu, Buganda, and Busoga in regards to coffee production. So this is news where most of the farmers in Busia are highly anticipating to benefit from coffee production. Now, with that, we now turn our focus on the forex exchange to see how different currencies were faring on the exchange by close of business yesterday. Now, the opening time saw the US dollar buy at 3,804.96, while selling was at 3,814.96. And closing time, the US dollar was buying at 3,795.67, while selling at 3,805.57. Looking at the Great Britain pound, it was buying at 4,848.20, while selling at 4,860.98. Now, the euro was buying at 4,128.92, while selling at 4,139.80. The Kenyan shilling was buying at 29.02, while selling at 29.10 shillings. The Tanzanian shilling was buying at 1.45 shillings, while selling at 1.45 shillings as well. And then lastly, the South African rand was buying at 202.95 shillings, while selling at 203.4649 shillings. So that's how you will find the different currencies faring on the exchange this morning. That is courtesy of the Bank of Uganda, or the central bank in the country. Chantal Oliver Kandenda is right in Studio A to ensure that she gives you a clear roadmap with our traffic updates this morning.
morning once again, and thank you for staying with us. It's time for our traffic updates. Let's see how you can maneuver as you're trying to make your way to town. My name is Chantal Olive Akandinda, and we are starting off from the roundabout that has that brings you from Gayaza Road, that has a route that brings you from Gayaza Road, has a route that brings you from Bombo Road, Makere, Kavole, and also tries to proceed onto Bombo Road, but also brings you to Mulago side. So let's see, if you're coming from Gayaza Road, as you can see on that roundabout, there is a lot of traffic. Usually around this time, Gayaza Road is mad with a lot of traffic. So, but when you go further as you're coming towards the roundabout, you realize that you are still safe to move. However, in the back, when you're trying to come from this is the Kalere roundabout. That's why you'll find a lot of traffic. For you who is exiting and you who is entering the Kampala Gayaza Road, you'll be finding a lot of traffic. But as you're closing into the roundabout, you'll be free to move until you get to the roundabout. That is why you'll be finding a lot of traffic, so brace yourself for that. Bombo Road is relatively safe before you reach the roundabout. As you can see, you will be finding slow movement of traffic, but nothing for you to worry about. I'm also talking about Makere Kavole Road, that you are safe to move. And if you're coming from the Kampala Northern Bypass, you will be finding that Bwaisa side, when you exit that roundabout or the bypass, you realize that there is a lot of traffic. Onto Sao Paulo Kagwa Road, yes, there is traffic. Muganzi Awoza Road, you will be finding lots of traffic in there, and I suggest that if you have an alternative route you can use, you do not use that route. But then let's get back onto Bombo Road. We're trying to make our way to town. As you can see, this roundabout has a lot of traffic. Bombo Road, after the traffic, after this roundabout, the Gayaza Road roundabout, as you are trying to now get further into town, that is Wandegea side, you'll be meeting a lot of traffic. If you have an alternative route, I highly recommend you take that. And as you can see as well, Bombo Road seems to be mad with a lot of traffic until you reach, there is a junction that has Haji Musa Kasule Road, the junction that has Haji Musa Kasule Road. And if you're coming towards the junction, you're expecting a lot of traffic. If you're exiting the junction onto Makere Hill Road, you are relatively safe to move. And onto Wandegea Road, there is a bit of traffic. Bombo Road, when you continue, now after that junction, you are safe to move. There is no traffic at all. And also that very same road is the road that, the Haji Musa Kasule Road is the road that leads you to Makere Hill Road. Further onto that road, there is a lot of traffic. And I would highly recommend you do not take that route. But if you're proceeding on to Bombo Road all the way coming to town, there is smooth flow of traffic, actually smooth movement, not even just slow, only until you reach the junctions that are close to Watoto Church downtown. That is why you'll be finding traffic. Short of that, proceeding on to Kampala Road, there is safe movement and just a little bit of slow movement when you get closer to the junction that leads you to Barton Street, and also the junction that leads you to CPS. That is where you'll be finding slow movement, but after that, you are safe to move. Still onto Kampala Road, as you can see, the holdups are really minimal until you reach the lights that will be taking you down to Entebbe Road or Queensway side. This is where you'll be finding a lot of traffic, but short of that, you are safe to move if you are using Kampala Road to make your way to town. Ginger Road is relatively safe with a bit of holdups, but if you are getting towards the Ginger Road junction, that is where the lights, that's why you'll be finding a lot of traffic. For you who is coming from Yusuf Lule Road, too much traffic is ahead. I wouldn't really recommend this for you unless you really not let. Access Road seems safe. Mukwano Road, Mukwano Roundabout, 8th Street is mad with a lot of traffic. If you're joining Mukwano Roundabout, there is traffic. 7th Street is safe. 6th Street is safe. Generally, you are still in time to move. However, in the coming minutes, I cannot guarantee that the update will still be the same. But as of now, you know which route that you can take to be able to make your way to town. And that's it for our traffic updates this morning. Good morning, Uganda agenda is coming up next. And well, this is the month to discuss men's health. And well, we look forward to that conversation.
Live from UBC Studios in Kampala, this is Good Morning Uganda.
Pick of the day on UBC.
He expected me to die like within the first 2 years.
Out of the blue, the child will get pains, especially in the wrists. And this happens commonly when children are starting to walk.
Was brought to you by
PDM, changing lives.
UBC is the national public broadcaster. We educate, inform, entertain, and inspire our audiences. You can watch us on free-to-air channel 001, DSTV channel 282, GoTV channel 371, Star Times channel 201, Zuku TV channel 20, and Azam TV channel 350. Even when your subscription expires, you can still watch UBC for free on your pay TV platforms.
107.3 Kampala, 96.9 Mbale, 95.7 Jinja, 98.6 Soroti. You are all covered.
UBC Mutego. UBC Mutego.
Amina gange ndetibona kiranda Amina mu company eya WIB Uganda Limited ndi member. Wemba member company eno weyeida twalinga tutuli bulungi nga abashala abe wakawaka. Abashala abe wakawaka tuemera kubaami baife nga bonkana abajamu nandanga twidi nti abashala tebakozesa ki nanda. UN Women weyeida yatuteekateeka yatwegesa okulunda engege nga abakyala. Twatandika beno okudulunda n'okudirisa n'okolaki. Twafunamu nga abakyala aba Bugiri district. Abakyala ba Bugiri district so far tuli abakyala 14 abakola project eya WIB. Abakyala 14 twayawula mu sectors. Mulimu abakyala ba production, abaliisa, mwaba abakyala ba validation, abongera engege omutindo bayongerako omutindo. Twaba n'abakyala ba harvesting, aba harvestinga. Twaba n'abakyala abakola aba marketing. Sector donna diri trained. Era didi kyedikola ki? Kyedikola. Project eno tufunyemu nga abakyala. Government yaife ne ya Uganda njebaza. Okujja kujanga batulingirira mu nga abakyala abana Uganda. Eri kujanga eturobingira ebibiina bingi. We have UWeb, baleta parish development model. We have Myoga. Byona biri kwida muki mu bakyala oba mu bantu abaki aba Uganda.
This weekend on UBC.
We know what we are doing and we're doing it in rebellion. But do you know what we say? He will understand. Now he will understand. We carry it on. We want our children to be better than that.
While we are living in rebellion, but we want our children to be so good at obedience.
We can only parent as far as or as much as we are obedient to our Father.
If you rebel against him and you expect your children to be obedient, I'm telling you, God in his mercy may come and meet them on his own, but you will become a reject. You will become a reject before your children.
This weekend on UBC.
Live from UBC Studios in Kampala. This is Good Morning Uganda.
Expanding the economic base of the country has remained crucial since the NRM came into power. President Yoweri Museveni consistently reminded the public of the economy's evolution from US dollars 1.5 billion in 1986 to over US dollars 49.4 billion. During the last State of Nation address, he criticized the continuous export of raw materials, which has hindered development.
Economy is still largely raw material based. This is the problem I have with finance. And all those wonderful people, agriculture, what? All these plans, 6% rate of growth, this one, they are all assuming we remain a raw materials producing country.
The president cited examples such as coffee seedlings being exported for processing in the Western world. According to President Museveni, Uganda cannot remain solely a raw material producing country, emphasizing the importance of diversification in driving economic growth.
A raw material for cleverer people. For abatarengera, we who don't see far, we sell our raw material to cleverer people to earn big money out of our sweat. With the unprocessed coffee, we get US dollars 2.5 per kilogram. If the same coffee is processed, a kilogram will give us US dollars 40, increasing in value by a factor of 15.
The president reminded the public how the economy transitioned from reliance on 4 main cash crops to a more diverse range of crops like maize, beans, and sunflower.
Matoke, bananas, fish, milk, etc. have become commercial, contributing to household incomes. Other crops that have joined the traditional cash crops include sunflower, from which we now make edible oil, palm oil trees, vanilla, avocado, oranges and mangoes, which are raw materials for the agro-processing factories.
The president expressed optimism about interventions such as the parish development model and the Imyoga programs, believing they will boost household incomes. However, he acknowledged the need for continued regional visits to monitor the progress of wealth creation programs, citing instances of abuse where elite individuals misused funds intended for the PDM.
Increase in household incomes. Although the country has been faced with economic shocks, household businesses have responded positively to government investments in especially infrastructure and the various wealth creation initiatives. As a result, 60% of households have increased their incomes in the year ending December 2022 compared to 43% whose incomes increased in the same period a year ago.
President Museveni also highlighted the government's move to collect approximately 29.7 trillion in domestic revenue to contribute to raising the GDP by 18% in the next 5 years. He emphasized ongoing efforts to rationalize public entities in order to reduce public expenditure and government's reliance on borrowing. Regarding foreign direct investments, FDIs, the president noted that more investors have embraced the peaceful environment in Uganda. He highlighted increased investment in oil and gas and mineral development infrastructures, which he believes will attract further foreign investment.
What we need to intensify as Africa is to build the regional infrastructure to improve connectivity within the region and reduce trade transaction costs. This way, we shall be able to pull our populations out of poverty much faster because we shall attract more investments. On foreign direct investment, Uganda's investment climate remained competitive in the region and globally. Because of this, investors willing to bring their money and invest here have increased. This is partly due to the stable and sound economic policies and the prevailing peace and security in the country.
The president is expected to address the country this Thursday, marking 1 year since the previous State of the Nation address.
Well, the State of the Nation address happening this afternoon. The president will be addressing the nation and tackling key issues that Ugandans are very worried about. The issue of taxes, the issue of the national budget are among the key highlights that Ugandans need the president to speak about. But also there is the issue of corruption and there is the issue of national security, especially the lawlessness that is happening in most cities and metropolitan areas in the country. That is where we are. So what are your expectations regarding today's State of the Nation address? What are the highlights you would like to hear from the president today? Well, my name is Olive Monica Najuma, and I'm joined by Chantal Olive Kaninda and Jerome Paul Sonko. And together, we continue the conversation that we had earlier in our news reel, and we still look at some of the past presidential addresses. And of course, we look at what expectations Ugandans have. But before we launch into that conversation, I already have a few of your expectations that you have sent through. So I will share some of those and then we will launch into the conversation. So Mukama Awali from Iganga district says corruption, corruption, corruption. It's even with local government, banange. So Mukama echintu chimtabuseko. Then continuing still, this is Bernard from Chitende, and he says, I want him to address the nation on the sanctions, corruption, state of country's economy, probably too much debt on the country. That is by Bernard. And Chigwe Livingston from Ndeje Division Reza says, good morning, Paul and Olive. Good morning. And he says, I wish to hear the president talking about insecurity as many people's lives perish these days, commonly in Wakiso, Mukono, and Kampala districts, basically Kampala metropolitan area. And he says, secondly, economic transformation. And lastly, our girls and boys who go to foreign countries for green pastures in Dubai, Saudi, Malaysia, among others, and die in the hands of fellow Ugandans who take them to unknown places through unknown companies. So this one would like the president to look at that. But this is a Chigwe Livingston from Ndeje Division Reza. And Issa from Lira City says the highest number of people in Uganda are living below the poverty line. Alarming higher levels of poverty need more focus. And he goes on to say, most of our leaders are egocentric. Therefore, we have great thinkers out here who can give a permanent solution to total to topple that. I think that's what he meant. An advertisement can be made in all media houses for people with best solutions on eliminating poverty out of Uganda. Prizes to be won for the best articles. That's a good one. And still with your feedback, this one says, this is Pius Bitek Okot from Amuru District. And he says, I expect the following issues in today's State of the Nation address. And number one, measures to resolve the Upper Land conflict that have claimed the lives of many Ugandans in that region. And he goes on to say, what actions are in plan to implement the presidential directives or orders against Balalo and environmental degradation? Yesterday was World Environment Day. So I believe that this concern comes in handy and at the right time. I have more feedback coming through and I will be sharing that a bit later. But for now, we would like to launch into the conversation. And I'll go to you, Chantal, first. Among some of the key issues that some of the Ugandans have shared with us here through feedback, the issues that they want the president to highlight today, what stands out the most for you, or what resonates with you the most?
If we are talking about economic development, yes. If we are talking about growth as a country, we need to go back down to things that are still making us lag behind, or things that are holding us by our feet, are the limitations we have. And I would go straight to things like corruption. Those are some of the things that are really holding us by our feet, failing us to move. They're like sandbags on our feet, and they're making us fail to move. One, at the pace we're supposed to be moving. Two, in the direction we're supposed to be moving. Instead of now focusing on what's the next sector we're giving focus to develop, we are focusing on who has taken the next amount of money, who has taken the biggest amount of money, have they been apprehended? And then before you know it, the year goes by and another year comes, another one goes by, and we have not got results. One, from those who are apprehended, how much money has been returned? I saw reports now of the IGG, and money had been recouped and stuff like that. How has it been now reallocated? How has it been used? Are we getting accountability for this money that has been recouped from these corruption cases? So let's go back to, are we fighting the demons that are making us lag behind, that are the sandbags on our feet, failing us from achieving the economic transformation that we need, that are stopping us from achieving the middle class status that we are supposed to have achieved? Ideally, apparently we achieved it, but even the World Bank does not agree with our statistics and our information that we achieved, we achieved that status. So corruption and embezzlement, I believe, are one of the biggest, if not the biggest, hindrance that we have. We have very good plans. Yes. Very wonderful plans.
On paper.
On paper. The problem comes with execution. And it's in that part of execution, one, that we see substandard work being delivered. Two, that we see money disappearing as if there was no one responsible for some of those plans that we had. So if we went back down and handled things like corruption, if you scrutinize it properly, you realize that it's like a cancer that keeps eating us, and we keep swallowing a Panadol for it. Because how? Look at a road that was supposed to be maybe a 2-lane or 3 or 4-lane, but it's a 2-lane.
Yes.
Yeah? Look at a hospital that was supposed to be on a certain piece of land with holding a certain capacity.
And money released.
Money released, yes. But up to now, it is not yet complete. Yeah? Now, go back down to, if we say we're going to invest in education, and UPE or USE is going to be given a certain amount of money to motivate these teachers to come and teach, to make their teaching even much easier, give them the right resources to use. And then before you know it, the things are not reaching the remote areas of the country. Come back to Kampala. How long can you drive without finding a pothole? I think right now the Entebbe Express is the longest stretch you can drive without finding a pothole. Any other road I haven't seen, maybe where I haven't reached, but any other road you'll find a pothole somewhere. And please do note, these potholes are filled every now and then. But what happened to us delivering the quality work? What happened to us making sure that let's get this, do it, get it out of the way, and handle the other? Corruption is still our problem, because one, where someone, for example, commits a crime, now to the lowest, commits a crime, if they're able to bribe their way out, maybe police or even court, they'll bribe their way out. That means criminals have not been apprehended.
So, but let's look at corruption even further. It's a disease that the country, we've had the president pretty much talking about corruption every single year, in every single address. Right. He mentions it. But I feel like we need to even cut him some slack. Because when it comes to corruption, who are the facilitators of corruption? Normally when we mention corruption, and I see you, Chantal,
yes.
Normally when we mention corruption, we think, the first thing, when you hear corruption, what comes to your mind first?
Government.
Thank you. But who is giving the police officer a bribe on the road?
We are the ones.
Who is telling someone, you see, my son got 7, but we want to enter this school with 4 aggregates? As Ugandans, are we doing enough to fight corruption?
No, we're not doing enough, but I think there is also something that we really need to criticize the government, the misuse of the funds. I think that is part of the corruption. And this is where the Ugandans carry, or we Ugandans carry the bigger burden and throw it onto the government.
Yes.
The misuse of the funds. Of course, when you look at how corruption moves and how it works, we are all agents or agents of corruption.
We are enablers.
You know, we are enabling the corruption to continue, because with the simple bribes that we carry with us in schools, in society, if you want to get a job, then that means you are creating this, the kind of environment that is corruption friendly. That means if I, who is bribing a security guard or let's say a traffic officer, if I have the chance and the opportunity to get into office, the chances are I will have it in my mind that the only way to go through anything is to bribe my way through it. So that means, and then that means I have started my level of corruption from a small scale while driving it to the national level.
Yes.
Now, when it comes to the misuse of the public funds, I wish the government, okay, let me say, I pray hard that the president takes a huge stand this afternoon on how to deal with this, let's say the misuse of the public funds. Like Chantal has mentioned, when you look at the roads, the state of the roads that we have in the country, you know, it brings so much, you know, pain to all of us.
Yes.
And at times, some of the government officials who are responsible to monitoring and supervising some of these government projects, especially making sure that the roads are well maintained, well constructed, and they meet the standards of a developing country, urban planning, you get to realize that at times many of them do not even notice, because the type of vehicles that some of them are privileged enough that the vehicles they're actually driving or are being driven into do not even, you won't even feel a thing.
I saw someone on, and I'm going to let you continue, but adding to what you said, I saw someone on Twitter the other day on Matters Day, Monday, and he said he took a picture of Chira. Now, if you stay that side of town, right now we are living in, I don't even have the right word. I wash my car pretty much every day.
Someone said it's like a Mad Max kind of series that is being created.
A Pearl of Africa rally.
But I think the good thing is that the road is being worked on.
So they're going to work on it. But what I'm trying to say is, someone was saying that maybe sometimes the president, when he's doing his routes, maybe they should pass him through there so that he sees for himself, because sometimes they lie to him. Sometimes he thinks that the people he has put on the ground are doing the right job. The other day, the Prime Minister was trying to move around Kampala, looking at the structure of our roads, and she was so infuriated that money was released, contracts were signed, and the roads are not being worked on. So this is where the problem is. But I'll let you continue with the point you were with earlier.
So when you look at the situation that we're in, that the people who are supposed to be, you know, the supervisors of some of these government projects that we, let's say the ordinary Ugandans are to benefit from, are not feeling the same pain we are feeling. And, you know, they will address certain issues from a privileged sort of thing. Yesterday, when some of the casual workers of KCCA were on strike, because they've been on strike for quite some time, they are demanding for 6 months.
4 to 6 months.
4 to 6 months.
Yes.
Now, according to KCCA, they hired, they actually gave contracts to private players to ensure that they deal with everything of cleaning the city.
Right, right.
But then also when you go back to the drawing board, you realize that at times money comes in late for KCCA to deal with these contractors to say that these casual workers or laborers are actually paid. But now, there was an argument that when you look back at the time when the president was asking that when he heard of the commissioners sharing 400 million Ugandan shillings and 500 million Ugandan shillings.
1.7 billion.
His question was, we are looking for money as a national treasury.
Yes.
And yet people are sharing it amongst themselves.
The same amount.
And exactly. Now the individuals, trust me, if you have 4 people, each taking over 400 million Ugandan shillings, that is close to 2 billion shillings.
It was 1.7 billion.
Now, 1.7 billion. Now that alone can cater for something.
That is half the budget that National Bureau of Statistics had for the census.
Now, when you look back at what KCCA was asking for, KCCA had asked for 8 billion and it first received 2 billion. Now, imagine if the 1.7 billion had gone to KCCA for some of the other road maintenance.
Yes.
Now, that takes you back to the individuals who took this 400 million per person didn't mind about whether this person is going, whether Ugandans are not going to benefit for as long as me, I'm going to eat this money. So when you look at, you know, it takes me back to what I suggested earlier on the integrity levels of Ugandans today. That someone who is in office does not care about the voter only until we are close to the elections. That is when they say, okay, now this 400 million should not be wasted. I think it should go back to the people. But now at this time, you realize we have poor roads. The state of our roads, by the way, in the capital are really worrying.
Infrastructure. Infrastructure is one thing. And yet, the president has previously in one of the addresses said that for us to have development, we must have infrastructure development because it fosters economic growth.
Let me take it back to basic science that we studied. They would tell you that these farmers need to transport their produce from their villages or their farms to the towns or to the centers where they sell them. But how are those roads on which they are transporting? What means of transport are they using? Do you know that some people, when you go to the West, I was in the West some time back doing a documentary, when you get there, you'll find this man with a bicycle, roadmaster, Manyiga Chifuba, with I don't know how many bunches of matoke on there, pushing it. Now, the distance that this man is pushing it, if I were to calculate properly, if I'm driving, it takes me about 40 minutes from wherever he's coming from to the nearest center. Meanwhile, the nearest center is not the market where he's going, just go to Semka town. You get it? So, 40 minutes in a car. Now, this person is pushing this bicycle from down that side up to town. And the road is not the very best. Now, tell me, just basic science. The hindrances to some of the things like agriculture, if you're telling me that we are supposed to be achieving, commercial agriculture,
yes,
and we're supposed to get out of subsistence agriculture, do you know why
and also embrace value addition.
16 million Ugandans out of now say close to, maybe say over 45, 16 million Ugandans are still under subsistence farming? Small, just those small...
And those that are trying to upgrade to commercial farming, you realize that the middlemen are making,
also making it
more
hard.
money.
So by the time either end
the
user get the product,
my
it's
friend,
way too
it has gone through like 2-3 people, and the price has already gone up. And please note that most of these local farmers who are supposed to be gaining from their land and produce and their sweat, they are being ripped off. It's only maybe because I get access to some of these people and have conversations with them.
Yes.
Now for coffee, it's getting a bit better because they're getting themselves, the coffee farmers are getting themselves organized
yes,
into cooperatives, and there's some cooperatives that are now doing pretty well for themselves. Yeah, but back then, when it came to coffee, someone tells you, I am putting in money year in, year out, but 1 kilo of coffee is about 5,000. But right now, those who are in cooperatives, those that are getting organized, now they're getting into 14,000, 12,000, 15,000. Yeah. But now imagine if we had ways on which these farmers got this information, got these trainings, and when you even do a bit of more research, you realize that the people who are holding these sensitization programs, these trainings, trying to boost agribusiness, are not they're either partnering with government, or they are NGOs and individuals that have come into the country to make sure that there is a boost in agriculture. But if we are to go back down to how we are trying to make these boosts and see change, we need to go back down to talk about demonstration farms. We know that there are some government officials that have taken over demonstration farms in some districts, and they have refused to let go of them. And they're telling you, I fought for this country. This farm belongs to me.
It's the entitlement where people think that because I contributed in this way, then this belongs to me.
And you know,
but,
people have also lost land. The allegations of people losing land.
Yeah, people losing land. We've had land cases in Kono, Mitiana, yes.
The country. And again, it is a pain to the low-income earner. Why? Because if we want to see Ugandans, or we want to raise household incomes, you have to look into what is making people, poor.
Yes.
What is making people poorer? Because even the farmer who wants to commercialize, if at all their product, if at all they are not earning anything from the product they actually are growing, then most of them just decide to continue just doing subsistence, because at least you know you're growing your own food.
You're feeding your family.
To feed my family
and
myself.
When we do talk about value addition, let's say, to many agricultural products, how easy is it for a farmer somewhere hard to reach for them to add value to, let's say, their matoke, their cassava? Is it them that are supposed to add the value, or they are supposed to sell to someone else who is going to take their produce at a cheap? So and then
you see,
how is it supposed to work?
When we are rolling out initiatives for maybe parish development model, I would even recommend, instead of giving out money, that money is given to these organized groups that also, by the time it reaches them, do you know that those who got money for the youth livelihood program, for example, they will tell you, we got about 2 million Uganda shillings. Now, about 2 million Uganda shillings, am I going to buy land? Am I going to put up a factory? Am I going to put up a collection center that has good storage and is going to make sure that I still have good quality produce by the time I'm done trying to add some value to it, or even collect and sell somewhere? Probably not. So let's go back down and see how do we set up facilities in the different districts. Let's have collection centers for milk, for example. Yeah. Now, what I have noticed is the collection centers for coffee, for dairy like milk, you realize that these are individuals in a particular district that came together and organized themselves.
Yes.
They have also an umbrella organization, yes, but they're trying to do their work as individuals. Now, where is government when it comes to supporting such organized groups that are trying and doing their level best to make sure that we get good products, good quality? When it comes to value addition, now, on the value chain of, say, for example, agriculture, it depends on where you as an individual, you want to be placed. You might decide to be a farmer, but I might decide to put up a collection point where I say, for all the maize, I will go buy it at a relatively good price from the farmers, collect it here, and probably add some value to it, make flour, and then sell it.
Because most farmers don't have the capacity to add value. And the only chance they have, or the only shot they have at value addition, is having the raw material, take it to the next person
collection
with the
center.
or the person with the facility. Maybe you have a farm.
That is the closest.
You take your milk to this farm.
That is the closest.
Or you have your matoke, you take it to the market, the nearest market. Most of the farmers, but the issue is regulating the prices, because you realize the first receiver or the middleman is the person who has control over the price.
Now you see, individuals who are trying their best to, you know, to change that narrative have really tried to have fair prices for the farmers. When you look at the SACCOs, the coffee SACCOs, for example, or the dairy SACCOs, you realize that, yes, they are selling to big dairy companies or even production companies or even exporting, but then they're offering relatively good prices to their farmers, because they understand the struggle. When you have interactions with them, but this is on almost individual basis, it's out of someone's goodwill, thinking that, okay, we are putting in so much as this district. We produce a lot of milk, but this milk, one, our farmers are not gaining from it. How about a SACCO that is going to enable them be able to deliver milk here? There is a collection point. They have enough storage facility. They have enough ways of protecting that milk, preserving it, and keeping it in its raw and freshness until it reaches to the final buyer, for example, or to the manufacturers who are going to now add more value to it. The closest some of these people get is, I have delivered my coffee for hurling at this collection point. And they have a hurling machine. When you go to areas that are producing, especially on a higher level, in high quantities, when you go to areas that are producing the likes of milk, the likes of matoke, the likes of coffee, they are surviving on cooperatives.
And,
cooperatives and
SACCOs.
Yes.
I also wish these. I also wish the president talks about our health situation. You know, over the past 12 months, in our conversations here in the newsreel, the news that has been reported, you do realize that hospitals, especially the health centers up country, are normally running out of medical supplies.
Yes.
And not only that, there have also been reports of having few, you know, doctors on ground. And then also the salary, you know, disparities of those in the medical fraternity. Because as much as we are looking at the health sector, you do realize that the easiest access of health facilities is next to a public health center or a government-aided hospital. But the problem here, or the issue that we've been having for the past, not only even the past 1 year, but for the years, is lack of medical supplies. And then there are situations where if someone has an emergency late in the night, trust me, there are very few hospitals within the country that will be open in the night. So that means people are losing their lives to that. And we've also seen mothers, expectant mothers,
Let me give you an example of Molago Women's Specialized Hospital. I went there, and by midday, they are telling you, after midday, you can't get an antenatal card. But it's a women's specialized hospital. What are you telling me?
And it's midday.
By midday, you can't get an antenatal card.
So just this week, the Parliament's Accounts Committee visited Mulago Hospital, and they did find that at the facility, one, they didn't have enough doctors. And I remember you telling us here.
I faced it firsthand.
Thank you very much. So the hospital superintendent said they don't have enough doctors because there was a temporary ban on hiring. But even after it was released, they need the Ministry of Finance to give them money so that they can now recruit doctors. Remember, we have many doctors in the country. We have many doctors in the country that are unemployed. In fact, we have brain drain when it comes to the medical sector.
Thank you very much.
How many nurses were we supposed to expatriate to Germany? In thousands of numbers, right? And then you go to a hospital and they say, the National Referral Hospital. They have facilities they are not using.
That's what I'm telling you.
Equipment that has never been used. So basically, the president has a lot on his hands today.
Probably he doesn't get some of this information.
Maybe he doesn't, but as the national broadcaster, we bring him this information. Now, I have more feedback coming through, and this one says, good morning, gentlemen and ladies. You didn't leave your name. Please give us your name so that we know who is watching and listening and giving us feedback. But he says, guys, corruption is the major act that is letting our country, your country, to have high crime rate. He goes on to say, Amin Kagadi just came to wake this side, but the district officials, I just came to work this side, but the district officials, if you have no money via the service commission, you can't get a job, and jobs are kept for so-and-so sons and daughters. I'm glad and thankful for angels who directed me to Uganda, but we need to talk in a meeting one-on-one. You didn't leave your name. You didn't leave your name, but we hear you. And Chris from Mitiana says, I expect our president to address more on LGBTQ moral act, because in Mitiana, homosexuality is much in act and AIDS is at high speed. Let's fight for our culture. Do you have the numbers? Do you have the evidence? Because you can't just throw around words. But the president is very vocal on that one. And even during the Matters Day speech, he said the gay community should not threaten us. He said we are a land of matters. But I'm sure he will say more today, because many people are asking that he talks about the sanctions, and probably he might address those as well, because the Speaker of Parliament says that the sanctions against her are because she passed, or her parliament passed, the anti-homosexual bill, which now is an act because the president assented to it. And now moving on, Kyra Patrick says, good morning, presenters. The biggest problem is corruption and how to effectively fight it. There is meat to that bone. How to effectively fight it. The facilitators, secondly, lack of supervision on government contracts, where we end up having substandard works. Takes us back to what Chantal said when it comes to infrastructure development and the implementers and the supervisors. I think even Jerome Paul mentioned that. And then he did mention poor urban planning. Look at Kampala. It's not worth even being called a capital city.
Just the drainage itself. It
and
rains
then
and there is sewage flying everywhere.
And then he said, secondly, we need world-class infrastructure that spurs economic development. Talk of roads, buildings, and research on innovation projects. And he says that the government should prioritize value addition and halt the export of raw materials. We either do it now or we don't. We have donated money to Western countries for far too long, and it's high time we wake up. Kaida Patrick, we hear you.
Very well said.
Very well said. Very well said. Now, as we close, parting shots. Very few seconds, because time is of the essence.
I'll go first. I think I'm eagerly waiting to see what the president is going to highlight in his address today. But I hope, I'm just hoping, he mentioned something about the sanctions on the ex-ministers, and then also the speaker. Then I expect, or I hope, he mentioned something about our health sector, because we badly need something done, really. And then also on issues to do with infrastructure development, because if we are to grow the economy, then our infrastructure also needs to be of a well-developed and well-planned kind of country. I think we should now become a planned country, I should say. All right. And Chantal?
I'm really looking forward to sustainable solutions to the challenges that we are facing as Ugandans. And I'm hoping that the plans that we have this time around are plans that are very well thought through and are plans that are going to be seen through. I'm holding on to that hope with my fingers crossed.
Well, as we close, Kenny Rogers Buginyanya from Obulambuli says Chantal is talking about someone using a bicycle. Whereas us here in Bulambuli, you'll find someone having 2 bunches of matoke on their back, and they're traversing or walking kilometers to find the nearest market so that they can make a buck or 2. Now, that's a thought out there. And this is the reality that Ugandans are facing. But we can't go any further than this. The presidential address, that is the State of the Nation address, will be happening this afternoon. The president will highlight many issues that Ugandans are grappling with, and even offer solutions, but also tell us what has been done regarding some of the key issues that he mentioned in the previous State of the Nation address. So we await to see, and we will be bringing you the live updates here on Uganda Broadcasting Corporation, because that's what we do. We bring every information to you. Well, we will take a breather and we'll be right back with Ruben Pima on the sports updates.
Live from UBC Studios in Kampala. This is Good Morning Uganda.
Pick of the day on UBC.
He expected me to die like within the first 2 years.
Out of the blue, the child will get pains, especially in the wrists. And this happens commonly when children are starting to walk.
Was brought to you by This Weekend on UBC.
We know what we are doing, and we're doing it in rebellion. But do you know what we say? He will understand. Now he will understand. We carry it on. We want our children to be better than that.
Why we are living in rebellion, but we want our children to be so good at obedience.
We can only parent as far as or as much as we are obedient to our Father.
If you rebel against him and you expect your children to be obedient,